So today we are looking at nutrition fundamentals for promoting health and reducing risk of disease. Now, you already know my name is Rochelle. My business is LROC Nutrition, and I am a BANT registered nutritionist. I provide one-to-one clinical nutritional therapy consultations as a practitioner. Next slide, please. So a quick disclaimer, this presentation is for general information and our focus is replacing highly processed food with healthy food. And due to time, I won't be able to read everything on each slide, but please watch this back and pause the presentation, read through the slides as many times as you need to. Next slide, please. So many of you have heard of processed foods. But have you heard of ultra processed foods, aka UPFs? So UPFs are formulations derived from foods with little or no natural food and often contain industrial chemical substances, including artificial colorings, flavorings, and other cosmetic enhancers to make the food more appealing and tasty. Yum. These are ready-to-eat foods that are mostly low in nutrients, vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, water, protein, fiber. They're things that can help us feel full. And that's why it's so easy to overeat these foods. UPFs are generally high in sodium, sugar, and unhealthy fat and other ingredients that support shelf life stability, but not human health stability. And in the UK, more than half of our calories come from ultra processed foods. And this amount is even higher amongst our children and adolescents. So there is a need for us to talk about UPFs. Next slide, please. So consumption of ultra-processed foods are associated with an increased risk of many diseases as listed. This list includes cardiovascular diseases, and a scientific study showed that eating one medium McDonald's fries each week was enough to increase the heart disease risk, including a 12% increased risk of heart failure. And this risk only increases with each additional serving of other fried ultra-processed foods throughout that same time period. UPFs increase the risk of being overweight or living with obesity. And UPFs also increase the risk of cancer, which is the leading cause of death worldwide. But there is hope for these tough times and these hard truths. It's estimated that around 40% of cancer cases are preventable through lifestyle changes such as eating healthily, being active, and maintaining a healthy weight, amongst other factors. So let's look at some examples of these UPFs. Next slide, please. The ultra-processed foods category includes sweetened juices and mass-produced bread, which usually has a long list of ingredients, some of which are hard to pronounce, like the example on the slide. UPFs also include margarine. I'm sorry to say, I know that some of you might be shocked, but margarine contains several food additives. It's very high in omega-6 fatty acids, which we need, but when it's unbalanced with our omega-3 fatty acids, there's an increased risk associated of Alzheimer's. And also, margarine undergoes a manufacturing process that can cause trans fats to be produced, which are very dangerous to our health. Now, UPFs are cheap, they are convenient, and they typically contain a minimum of 5 or more ingredients, including ingredients that you will not see in your kitchen. Another scientific investigation showed that higher consumption of ultra-processed foods of more than 4 servings per day is associated with a 62% increased risk of any type of death compared with lower consumptions. So avoid ultra processed foods as much as you can if you want to reduce your risk of developing potentially serious diseases. Next slide, please. So when we talk about fundamentals for promoting health, we need to look at eating more whole foods daily, foods that are unprocessed or minimally processed. So unprocessed foods are obtained directly from plants or animals and do not undergo any alteration following their removal from nature. Whereas minimally processed foods are natural foods that have been submitted to a small necessary process, such as removal of inedible parts, grinding, freezing, but no other substances are added to the original food. We need to replace ultra processed foods with whole foods, and I'll explain why in the next slide. Next slide, please. High consumption of whole foods are associated with many health benefits as listed on this slide, including a lower risk of dementia. Replacing 10% of UPFs with whole food is associated with a 19% reduction in the risk of dementia. Whole food consumption is also associated with better bowel habits, and this is because whole foods are generally higher in fiber, which feeds our beneficial bacteria in the digestive system. Also, fiber-rich foods such as green leafy veg and whole grains tend to be rich in magnesium, which is a mineral that also promotes regularity. Now, do you know that optimal dietary fiber intake and not being constipated can support the maintenance of healthy cholesterol levels? But we'll leave that topic to another day. Next slide, please. So here's a list of some unprocessed and minimally processed foods. You have starchy roots such as sweet potatoes and cassavas. You have your pulses and legumes such as your chickpeas and lentils. And of course we have fruit and vegetables, both fresh and frozen. Now the government guidelines suggest that we eat at least 5 portions per day, but 69% of adults don't do this. In 2017, a scientific study estimated 7.8 million early deaths worldwide in 1 year could have been avoided by people eating up to 10 portions per day, which is not something you're going to achieve overnight, but you can still build up to it over time. Next slide, please. So to conclude, here's some general health promoting tips. Avoid ultra-processed foods. For example, your high in sugar breakfast cereals and mass-produced packaged bread with long ingredients lists, and replace those UPFs with whole foods. For example, natural yogurt and seeds and cinnamon and nuts. Stock up on frozen whole foods. Freezing can help retain the nutrients and is very cost effective. And also plan ahead. When preparing meals, try to make plant foods like legumes and veg the focus rather than an afterthought. And also check the food labels. Now, if you are considering changing your diet, it's important to seek more information or speak to a practitioner like myself for individualized care, especially to help your body as it transitions and adapts to new introductions that it is not used to. Next slide, please. So if you do have any questions, if you want help with your diet, and if you do desire support to reach a health goal, please feel free to contact me. You can even book a free chat with me via the Linktree URL, in fact any URL on that screen, and you can connect with me on social media, LRockNutri, for further health information too. Thank you so much for your time, and I pray that you will be in health and live in freedom. Thank you and God bless.